What's up, guys? So in this episode here, we're going to be diving into some more CalTopo and LiDAR stuff. With the main premise being able to import and overlay the mineral resource data system gold mine information, so you'll actually see where all the little documented gold mine locations are on your map, for at least for each state. If you want to do it, we're going to do Virginia on this one, but you can do basically any state. And then from there, we are going to take a look at a couple different old mines throughout Virginia and kind of look at like how to determine if it's been if what you're looking at is like placer mining, like hand dug placer mining, trommel, big excavator type, hydraulic mining, and a number of those things, as well as going into so each mine location, a lot of times on mineral resource data system, other stuff will say, oh, this was a tunnel or underground operation. Whereas if you put in like placer for mineral resource data system, you get very few. But I just want to touch on some of that as well. So let's get into it here. So first thing we're going to have to do is go to Google and type in mineral resource data system. And you should get this here, what you're seeing. Click on that, open it. See all this. You want to scroll down and find search data using a form. Punch that open. We're going to go with state of Virginia, and then with commodity of, anybody guess? Anybody take a guess? Gold. Good job. Go search, and it'll give you a 440 total matches, and you'll choose a format to download it in. And for this one, we want, okay, so you'll want to go in here and you want to put it as Google Earth as your format, and then you go get data. It'll open you up to this page, and you'll go download file, MRDS Virginia Gold 0 KML. So click on that, hit download. That will end up in your files section. So now we'll go to CalTopo, to this little folder up here with a location marker on it, which is map items. And in the top left of map items, you'll see import. Go to choose files. Well, it keeps opening up there. And then you should see, where'd you import to? This one here, MRDS Virginia Gold Zip. Now it's trying to do stuff, but we'll click on that, go open, and then you'll see all the various mines. You got to scroll all the way to the bottom of this, which is a bit of a pain in the ass when there's about 100 million of them, and then you go import. And they should be there. So then, yep, in your map items, now you have all these. And if you close out, you will now see all the various mine locations all throughout here. Just zooming in randomly into Spotsylvania. Where are we? So yeah, here's actually the mine site for the Goodwin mine, which we looked at in the previous LiDAR video. You'll see Goodwin mine. None of this other, you can delete all this other information out of there. I don't know why it imports all that in, but there is that. That is how you import mineral resource data system gold mine locations into CalTopo. Okay, so now that we got the mineral resource data system gold mine sites overlaying into CalTopo, I'm going to take us over to Google Earth real quick because it gives a better thing of those, where when you click on them, specifically in Google Earth, it'll show you like operation type and a number of other things. And a lot of times it'll either say like unknown, tunnel, underground, or placer. And I've got a number of questions asking like, um, specifically like which sites were placer versus like underground and everything. And I had this same question too when I first started. It wasn't the clearest thing, and it seemed like most sites were underground or hard rock, specifically throughout Virginia. And I think in a lot of other places, the Mineral Resource Data System will show you the same thing in the Southeast and elsewhere. But the big thing to know is that even though these sites are showing more leaning towards hard rock information a lot of times, is that almost any site that I've looked at in Virginia or anywhere on the Southeast, regardless of if its primary mining was hard rock, there was almost always placer mining there as well. So we will open up CalTopo here on the computer again. So here we are in this is Central Virginia, kind of Goochland, Fluvanna line. Some of you guys may know it. Just as a reminder, once again, just because you can see these mine sites on Google Earth, CalTopo, through LiDAR and all that, does not give you permission to access them. This is all private property. This is strictly for educational purposes. So we are going to take a look at some mine sites in Goochland County, kind of here. My CalTopo is a little slow, but here we'll zoom in. This is going to be like the Belzora, Lancelot Marks, Collins mines, which some of these actually do show up as placer for this one, but some show up as hard rock. But basically, like I said, there's a placer component to any mines pretty much throughout the entire Southeast U.S. So that's always something you should keep in mind. But now we're going to kind of delve into and look at features of hard rock versus hydraulic versus like actual current stream placer types. So if we look here, there is, specifically at the Belzora site, there's a number of shafts. This would be your typical hard rock more so. But there are components of hydraulic right here coming off the hillside as well, particularly if you're looking where my mouse is at this pit here. So this is a pit, and then I would say you have a raceway hydraulic. So they probably hydraulic this and washed it down. And then there's a number of other sites like that throughout here. Like this is, I believe, on the vein, but they were hydraulic. Very similar to a number of mine sites in Georgia that they call like saprolite mining almost, where they'd hydraulic the actual vein source and wash it through sluice boxes because everything was so decomposed. So what you're seeing here is cuts on the vein trend, but then you see these raceways, and these were hydraulic raceways, probably either lined with sluices or you had sluices coming off at the bottom and going out. Versus right down here in the creek, this is old school, most likely hand dug placer. And all through this like valley up through is old school hand dug placer, not mechanized. So this is not drag line trommel type work here or anything. This is hand dug placer, probably through rocker boxes would be my guess, since there's generally not enough water flow in this area, nor enough fall to run anything like a long tom, other than when they're shooting hillsides and then washing it down. They have ponds through here and stuff. But now as we get over to this main valley, there's a hand dug placer component to some of this, but a lot of it's been overdone. Like in Ransom Creek bottom here, I would say most of this is actually dragline trommel, and they're going to be larger piles, and they're going to be more organized and uniform. Specifically when you come up here, you can see that we're getting all these piles in nice straight lines right where my mouse is and stuff. So this was I think this area was definitely drag lined and trommeled, and specifically also right down here where this little branch comes into Ransom Creek was drag lined and trommeled. You get these nice, neat rows of tailings back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And that's the trommel as they were pulling it forward. They were digging, probably pulling the trommel forward because it was on crawler tracks. You can actually go see. I don't know if it was the one at this site or at the Bertha and Edith mine. I think it was the Bertha and Edith trommel is at where Field Days of the Past is in Virginia, as well as the drag line. So you can go see those pieces of equipment still at Field Days of the Past in Virginia, which I think happens in September time frame every year. But this was drag line trommel, where they'd have the drag line digging the dirt in front, and I think it literally pulled the trommel as they went because they were both set up on crawler tracks. So it pulling it, so the trommel was discharging tailings in this nice, orderly fashion versus how hand dug stuff is done. So that's something to keep in mind there. We'll go over, there's some really nice ones over at the Bertha and Edith mine that are, yeah, look at these. So these are, here, we'll go full screen here as well. So these are 100% drag line trommel tailings from the 1920s into the 30s, I think. And you can just see how uniform they are, switching back and forth, back and forth. When you go there, these are substantially tall piles of overburden. There's no rock in most of these piles, because the interesting thing was with this particular mine, they were selling that rock to VDOT for road grades. So Virginia roads are also built on gold nuggets like Alaska stuff too. So you can see how organized all these ones are in this lower valley here. And then as we come up and start getting into the smaller valleys, you see how harebrained it starts. Very you can't figure out what was going on because it was hand dug through a lot of this area and up into these smaller valleys. It's all older hand dug stuff, and it gets really hard to tell because I think you had just bunch of guys throughout there in rocker boxes and pans and other stuff just shoveling. So you get these pits mounds just kind of randomly all over the place. So now that you're seeing what these mined valleys look like, we will minimize this back down. Whoop. You're seeing what these mine valleys look like, even coming up on these smaller ones. We're going to go sharing screens here. We're going to go off over just a little bit to the east and take a look at some other valleys here. So if you look at these other valleys, you see how nice and smooth and uniform they are, even getting into the bigger creeks here. How smooth and uniform the bottoms are showing up on the LiDAR. All this is pretty level and uniform compared to what these are. And that's just giving you an indication of placered valleys versus unplacered. So when you're looking on LiDAR, that should be something you're looking for to tell you if a stream valley was worked or not. It's one of the big tells. Though I will say, given the resolution of the LiDAR, sometimes you can miss some smaller workings. It is possible to miss them and they don't show up on LiDAR. But yeah, going through these little valleys here and stuff, I mean, none of these are plastered. These are all natural valleys that you're looking at here that have not been dug. Let me find a good example of one here. So this is a pretty good example. So you see this here, we got a nice uniform stream channel coming through, and on the sides of it and going up the hillsides is pretty much normal uniform. You'll get some of these weird cuts like this, but this is just natural erosion features coming off the hillsides and stuff. Whereas you look at it like these valleys and stuff, and the stream channel gets all distorted, hard to follow. There's diggings all through it. The mounds and pits is what you're seeing. This there's just more feature to the valley looking at the LiDAR versus this one looks pretty featureless. Now right here you do get two little pits, which is interesting. So if you were, say, prospecting this area, these two little pits would be something you want to look at. Now they could be mining related, or they actually could be wells from an old house site or something. So always pay attention to that type of stuff too if you're a metal detectorist as well. But yeah, you'll see this creek is just a lot more uniform in nature, especially let's get down to the bigger creek here on this one. All dug up. I mean, we can even just see it. We can even just see it right here. Dug, not dug. So this was not dug up, and this was all dug up. So that's a virgin creek bottom, and this is all placered. And you can just see non-placered creek, placered creek. There's a substantial difference between these two right here. So hopefully that kind of helps you guys with determining, one, almost any gold mine site throughout the entire Southeast in the mineral resource data system, even if it says hard rock or underground or all that, almost all of them have a placer gold component. So if you go to one of those hard rock mines and you have access to it, check those creek valleys there with them, because there's most likely they were placer mined in the past, and there's still free placer gold in those creek valleys surrounding that hard rock mine. And then the other thing, just looking at, is the let's scroll back over to the other one here, is just evidence of like hydraulic mining on LiDAR versus the current creek channel mining. So your hydraulic mining is pretty much always going to be taking place up on hillsides, washing stuff down. So you're going to get these trenches coming off the hillsides in various places, headed down towards the creek. And a lot of times cuts and everything too, because a lot of the hydraulic mining in the Southeast was generally on the vein trend, and they were washing the material in and around the gold vein down through sluices, and sometimes stamping the quartz that would come out of the sluices, particularly in Georgia for that stuff. I'm not as sure if they did it as much in the Carolinas, but they definitely hydraulicked vein sources and bench deposits, which are always going to be generally above the creeks. So that's where you get these big workings above the creeks. And when you start getting a lot of these trenches coming off of them and going down, that's kind of a dead giveaway on hydraulic workings. And then within the creeks themselves, very scattered, no methodology to the piles is telling you that it was probably hand dug. Whereas when you get to very uniform piles and nice lines going back and forth, sweeping, you're probably dealing with, for the Southeast stuff, drag line, trommel type, big trommel type activities. Out west, obviously, then you get into dredges that were doing the same thing, the big bucket line dredges. There were not many of those in the Southeast. One in North Carolina that I know the Fishers are working on digging back out of the ground. But I know of none in Virginia that had ever had a bucket line dredge set up. So anything in the Southeast, you're more so going to be looking at drag line and trommel operations. And each of these have their own things that they could and couldn't do that would leave gold behind for you to still find. Hand dug operations into rocker boxes and stuff are notorious for losing big gold, because there was a certain screen size in that rocker box and it would get pitched. And on some of the CVGP claims in Virginia, people still find big ounce nuggets and stuff in the tailing piles because they got screened out. Certainly the same thing could happen with dragline and trommel operations, but it comes harder to nail down where the good stuff is on those because there was so much more material moved. But I think that's going to wrap it up for us on this installment of just kind of going over LiDAR and mining features, as well as how to import mineral resource data system into CalTopo, and then just Yeah. Almost any mine site, gold mine site in the southeast will have a placer component to it. And then just going over the differences in what you're looking for on LiDAR for hydraulic mining, in-stream mining, hand dug, and machine dug. So that'll wrap it up. Hope you guys enjoyed this one, and we're gonna be starting next week on our Memorial Day week outing, which Nick has been working on the sampling. So this is literally going to be a video series coming up of from pan sampling to dredge sampling to running pay streak, running production. So the whole gamut all the way through. So I hope you'll join us for those, and we'll see you out there.